Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Within his dimly lit room, the laptop's warm radiance bathed the disarray of beer bottles on the table and beyond. All signs led to a single man's late-night efforts to escape his own conscience through alcohol. Upon reaching for another drink, Matthew stumbled across a peculiar advertisement, a beacon amidst the usual clutter of targeted marketing. The ad displayed a sophisticated prom dress, its pink hue radiant and attention-grabbing. An intricate structure of chiffon and beading lent an air of class and elegance to it. Despite his intoxication, the allure was undeniable. His cursor drifted, drawn to the delicate design. "Ridiculous," he scoffed, mindful of the obvious impracticality of such a purchase. Yet curiosity begged him to explore further, revealing a remarkably discounted price. Perhaps it was the alcohol clouding his judgment, or perhaps it was something deeper, something that had been waiting for this precise moment to surface. His finger hovered over the Add to Cart button. "Wouldn't it be hilarious?" he asked the empty room, a hollow laugh escaping his lips. "Just to see how ridiculous these things actually are." He completed the purchase, entering his shipping information with surprising precision given his state. The confirmation email arrived instantly, but Matthew had already passed out on the couch, the laptop still open beside him. The morning brought a pounding headache and fragmented memories of the previous night. Matthew dragged himself to the shower, letting hot water cascade over his lean frame as he tried to piece together what he'd done. It wasn't until he checked his email that he saw the purchase confirmation. "Oh God," he groaned, remembering the pink dress. "What was I thinking?" His finger hovered over the cancellation option, but something stopped him. A whisper of curiosity, perhaps, or something more profound that he wasn't ready to acknowledge. He closed the email without canceling the order, telling himself he'd return it unopened when it arrived. Days passed, and Matthew almost forgot about the dress until a package arrived at his door one rainy Tuesday afternoon. He stared at the plain brown box for nearly an hour before finally cutting through the tape. Layers of pink fabric spilled out, soft and shimmering under the apartment's harsh lighting. Matthew touched the material cautiously, as if it might burn him. The dress was more beautiful in person than it had appeared online. Delicate beadwork catching the light, the fabric whispering against his fingers. "This is stupid," he muttered. But still, he carefully lifted the dress from its packaging. He held it against his chest, avoiding his reflection in the hallway mirror. But even without looking, something felt right. A sensation he couldn't name settled over him, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Before he could think too hard about what he was doing, Matthew stripped down to his boxers and stepped into the dress. The zipper was challenging to reach, but he managed, pulling it up until the dress embraced his frame. When he finally looked up, the person in the mirror was both stranger and the most familiar sight he'd ever beheld. The pink fabric complemented his fair skin and blonde hair in a way that seemed meant to be. The dress's structure created the illusion of curves where there were none, softening the angles of his body. "Oh," he whispered, the single syllable carrying the weight of years of undefined longing. Tears welled in his eyes without warning. He sank to the floor, the dress billowing around him, and buried his face in his hands. This wasn't about a joke anymore. This was about finally seeing himself clearly for the first time.
"This is why,"
he whispered to the empty apartment.
"This is why nothing ever felt right."
Matthew spent hours in the dress that night, walking around his apartment, sitting at his desk, lying on his bed. Ordinary actions that suddenly felt extraordinary. When he finally took it off, carefully hanging it in the back of his closet, he felt the absence like a physical ache. Sleep eluded him as his mind raced through memories with new understanding. His discomfort with locker rooms growing up, the disconnect he'd always felt when someone called him one of the guys, the way he'd always admired women not with desire, but with something closer to envy. The next morning, he created a new email account and ordered more items: a floral skirt with soft pleats, a cream-colored blouse with a Peter Pan collar, a pair of Mary Jane shoes with modest heels. Each purchase was a step towards something that felt increasingly like truth. When the new items arrived, Matthew established a ritual. He would wait until evening, draw the blinds, then try on each piece, noting how they made him feel in a journal he kept hidden beneath his mattress. Words like authentic, peaceful, and right appeared repeatedly among his observations. After weeks of private exploration, Matthew found the courage to search for resources online. He discovered forums and support groups for people questioning their gender identity. He read personal stories that resonated so deeply it was as if they'd been pulled from his own mind. One name kept appearing in recommendations for gender therapists in the area: Dr. Eleanor Winters. Her website featured a professional photo of a woman with kind eyes and testimonials from grateful clients who spoke of finding themselves under her guidance. It took Matthew 3 days to work up the courage to call her office. I think I might be transgender," he said when asked the reason for his appointment, the first time he'd spoken the possibility aloud. The word hung in the air, terrifying and liberating in equal measure. His first session with Dr. Winters was predominantly him staring at the carpet, struggling to articulate feelings he'd buried for so long. She waited patiently, offering gentle prompts when the silence stretched too long. "The first time I wore a dress," he finally said, "it felt like I could breathe properly for the first time." Dr. Winters nodded. "That's actually quite common. Many people describe a similar sensation when they first present in a way that aligns with their true gender." "So you think I really could be—" "I can't tell you who you are," she said gently, "but I can help you discover that for yourself." Over the next months, their sessions became the foundation upon which Matthew built a new understanding of himself. With Dr. Winters' guidance, he explored his history, his discomforts, and the persistent feeling of disconnection from his assigned gender. 3 months into therapy, during a particularly breakthrough session, the name came to him. "Leila," he said suddenly, interrupting his own thought. If I am a woman, I think my name would be Leila." Dr. Winters smiled. "Would you like me to call you Leila today, to see how it feels?" Hearing her name spoken aloud by another person sent a wave of recognition through her body. "Yes," she whispered. "I'd like that very much." That evening, Leila stood before her mirror and practiced introducing herself. "Hello, I'm Leila," she said, trying different intonations, watching how her face lit up each time she claimed her name. The practical aspects of transition were daunting. Leila researched hormones, legal name changes, and the myriad other considerations that lay ahead. Some days, the mountains seemed too high to climb. On those days, she would put on the pink dress, now a talisman of sorts, and remind herself how far she'd already come. Slowly, she began to build a wardrobe that reflected her true self. Online shopping became a lifeline, allowing her to explore her style without the anxiety of in-person shopping. She gravitated toward feminine classics, A-line skirts, cashmere sweaters in soft hues, dresses that cinched at the waist and flowed gently over her hips. Dr. Winters helped Leila develop a timeline for coming out. They started with a close friend, Daniel, whom Leila had known since undergraduate days. "There's something important I need to tell you," Leila said over coffee, her hands trembling around her mug. She was presenting as Matthew that day, but had styled her growing blonde hair differently and wore a subtle, clear nail polish. Daniel waited, concern evident in his expression. "I'm transgender," Leila said, the words still new and raw on her tongue. "I'm a woman. My name is Leila." The moment between the statement and Daniel's response stretched like an eternity. "Thank you for trusting me with this," he finally said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Leila." She cried then, relief washing over her in waves. Daniel asked thoughtful questions, listening attentively to her answers, and by the end of their conversation, he was using her correct name and pronouns without hesitation. Not every disclosure went as smoothly. Her parents needed time to adjust, moving through stages of confusion and grief before arriving at tentative acceptance. Some friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the change. But for each person lost, it seemed the universe sent someone new, people who saw and appreciated Leila for exactly who she was. 6 months after her first therapy session, Leila began hormone replacement therapy. The physical changes were gradual, skin softening, body redistributing, but the psychological impact was immediate. For the first time, she felt her body moving toward alignment with her mind. As her confidence grew, so did her wardrobe. The pink prom dress that had started her journey hung prominently in her closet, but alongside it now were elegant sheath dresses in jewel tones, silk blouses, and pencil skirts that flattered her increasingly feminine figure. Her shoe collection expanded beyond the Mary Janes to include pointed flats in various colors and kitten heels for special occasions. 9 months into her transition, Leila decided it was time to live authentically in all aspects of her life, including her graduate studies in literature. She'd been attending classes as Matthew, despite living as Leila in most other contexts, afraid of the academic repercussions of coming out. The morning she chose to attend class as herself, she selected a burgundy sheath dress with 3/4 sleeves and black pointed flats. She styled her blonde hair, which had grown past her shoulders, in soft waves, and applied minimal makeup, just enough to enhance her natural features. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized the confident woman looking back at her. The walk across campus was both the longest and shortest of her life. Each step in her pointed flats felt monumental, carrying her toward a future where she could exist wholly as herself. She paused outside the classroom door, heart racing. Inside were 30 graduate students and Professor Harlow, none of whom had any idea who was about to walk through that door. She took a deep breath, straightened her burgundy dress, and entered. The immediate hush that fell over the room made her cheeks flush hot. She walked to her usual seat, acutely aware of the eyes following her movement. Professor Harlow, to her credit, barely missed a beat before continuing her lecture on Woolf's Orlando, ironically, a novel about gender transformation. After class, several students approached her with warmth and support. Professor Harlow waited until the room had cleared before speaking to her. "I presume you'd prefer to be addressed differently now?" she asked, her tone matter-of-fact but kind. "Yes," Leila replied, standing tall in her burgundy dress. My name is Leila. Professor Harlow nodded. Your analysis of Orlando's perspective shifts was particularly insightful last week, Leila. I look forward to your thoughts on the conclusion. It was as simple and as profound as that. In acknowledging her name, Professor Harlow had acknowledged her existence, her right to occupy space as her authentic self. The remainder of the semester saw Leila blossoming academically and personally. She found her voice in class discussions became stronger as she no longer wasted energy maintaining a facade. Her writing grew more nuanced as she brought her unique perspective to literary analysis. 1 year after that drunken night and the fateful purchase of a pink prom dress, Leila stood before the mirror in her apartment. She wore a forest green A-line dress with cap sleeves and beige pointed flats. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple chignon, revealing earrings that had been a gift from her mother. A peace offering and acknowledgement rolled into one. The person in the reflection was no longer a stranger or a secret self hidden behind a mask. She was simply Leila, in all her complexity and authenticity. Her phone chimed with a text from Daniel, reminding her they were meeting for dinner to celebrate the anniversary of her coming out to him. She smiled, gathering her purse and keys. As she locked her apartment door, she passed the spot where the pink dress had once been delivered. She had donated it months ago to a local organization that provided formal wear to transgender youth. It had served its purpose in her story. Now it could be part of someone else's. Outside, the spring air carried the scent of new beginnings. Leila walked with confidence, her pointed flats tapping a rhythm on the sidewalk, her green dress swaying gently with each step. She was no longer hiding, no longer disconnected from herself. She was home in her body, home in her life, home in the truth she discovered that night when a drunken whim had opened the door to her authentic self. Daniel waved from a table at their favorite cafe. "Leila," he called, standing to greet her with a hug. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," she said, smoothing her green dress as she sat. The words no longer felt foreign or uncomfortable. They were simply the truth. Over dinner, they reminisced about the past year, the challenges, the victories, the unexpected moments of grace. "If you could go back and tell yourself something from a year ago, what would it be?" Daniel asked, refilling her water glass. Leila considered the question, twisting a strand of blonde hair around her finger. "I'd tell myself that the journey is worth it, that authenticity costs something, but living a lie costs more." Later that night, after saying goodbye to Daniel, Leila returned to her apartment. She kicked off her beige flats and padded to her desk, where her unfinished thesis waited. Her topic had evolved over the past year, now focusing on identity and transformation in literature, themes that resonated deeply with her personal experience. As she settled into work, wearing her green dress in the quiet comfort of her own space, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the pink dress that had started it all, for the courage she'd found to pursue her truth, for the people who had walked alongside her. But mostly, she felt grateful for herself, for the woman who had always existed within, waiting patiently to be discovered and embraced. The blank page before her no longer seemed intimidating. She had found her voice, both on the page and in life, and that voice, clear and true, was unmistakably Leila's. 2 years into her transition, Leila sat in Dr. Winters's office for what would be one of their final regular sessions. The therapist's office had become a sanctuary during the most tumultuous periods of her journey, but increasingly, Leila found she needed the space less frequently. "You're wearing the emerald earrings," Dr. Winters noted with a smile. referencing a pair Leila had purchased to celebrate successfully defending her thesis. Leila touched one earring, the cool stone a pleasant contrast to her warm skin. "I thought it appropriate since we're marking another milestone today." They spent the hour reflecting on Leila's progress, not just in her transition, but in building a life that felt authentically hers. She had accepted a position teaching introductory literature courses at a liberal arts college, had cultivated deep friendships with people who had only ever known her as Leila, and had even cautiously begun dating. "When I think about that night, ordering that pink dress while drunk and miserable, it seems like another lifetime," Leila said, smoothing the fabric of the navy blue dress she wore. "I had no idea that clicking purchase would change everything." "The dress didn't change you," Dr. Winters countered gently. "It simply gave you permission to see what was always there." As Leila left the office, scheduling a follow-up for 3 months later rather than the usual 2 weeks, she felt a sense of completion. Not that her journey was over, she understood now that identity was always evolving, but that the most turbulent waters had been navigated. Her first day as Professor Harrison approached rapidly. Standing before her closet, Leila considered what to wear for her inaugural lecture. Her hand passed over several options before settling on a simple but elegant gray sheath dress with subtle navy piping. Professional, approachable, and authentically her. The classroom filled slowly with freshmen, their expressions a mixture of excitement and trepidation typical of first-year students. Leila arranged her notes on the podium, adjusting the sleeve of her gray dress, a familiar flutter of nervousness in her stomach. When the clock struck the hour, she looked up at the sea of faces, young adults at the beginning of their own journeys of self-discovery. "Welcome to Introduction to Literary Analysis," she began, her voice clear and confident. "I'm Professor Harrison, and I'm delighted to be exploring these works with you this semester." As she launched into her carefully prepared lecture on the power of narrative in shaping identity, Leila caught her reflection in the window, the woman looking back at her, poised, engaged, and completely at home in her gray dress and her own skin, was exactly who she was meant to be. The lecture flew by, students engaging enthusiastically with her questions and perspectives. As they filed out after class, one young woman lingered, waiting until the room had cleared before approaching the podium. "Professor Harrison?" she said hesitantly. "I just wanted to say, it means a lot to see someone like you teaching here." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken understanding. Leila smiled gently. "Thank you. Literature has always been a space where we can explore the full spectrum of human experience. I hope this class will be that kind of space for you, too." The student nodded, clutching her books tightly.
"I think it will be."
As the door closed behind the student, Leila gathered her materials, a profound sense of purpose settling over her. The journey that had begun with a pink prom dress had led her here, not just to self-acceptance, but to a position where she might help others find their own paths to authenticity. That evening, she met Daniel and his fiancée for dinner, regaling them with stories from her first day of teaching while adjusting the collar of her gray dress.
"To Professor Harrison,"
Daniel toasted, raising his glass.
"Who teaches by example that the most important story we tell is our own."
Leila raised her glass, the emerald earrings catching the light as she moved. "And to the characters we become when we have the courage to write ourselves true." Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Leila paused by her dresser where a small framed photo stood, the only image she kept from before her transition. In it, a person with short blonde hair and sad eyes smiled uncertainly at the camera, a stranger she now recognized as the cocoon that had protected her until she was ready to emerge. "Thank you," she whispered to the image, "for holding on until I could find my way to myself." She turned away from the photo, toward the closet where dresses in various colors hung neatly, visual testimony to the woman she had always been and had finally become. Among them, empty space remained where the pink prom dress had once hung, a reminder of beginnings and the power of a single choice to change everything. Leila slipped into bed, set her alarm for her second day of classes, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would wear the burgundy dress with the pointed black flats. Tomorrow she would continue building this life that fit her like a perfectly tailored garment. Tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after, she would live as Leila, professor, friend, woman, herself, in every sense of the word. And that, she knew now, was the greatest achievement of all.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!